That tin you bought recently contains preservatives, metals, and chemical linings, which are banned in almost every country. Chemicals that have been linked to serious health concerns and behavioral problems in children, and if you're an adult or over 60, these preservatives and chemicals are linked to cancer, diabetes, but here in the UK, they're perfectly legal. In the next 20 minutes, I'm going to expose exactly which 7 canned foods brands you need to avoid and why. I'll show you what's really in them, what it's doing to your body, and most importantly, what you should be buying instead. By the end of this, you'll never grab the same can again. At number 7, we have Prince's. The name sounds regal, trustworthy, almost patriotic. For decades, Prince's canned foods have been a staple in British households. Corned beef, tuna, ham, beans. Products marketed as affordable, reliable, and safe. But in recent years, that trust has been shattered by recalls, contamination scandals, and shocking lapses in food safety that left families at risk. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Prince's isn't just another budget brand. It's one of the largest canned food suppliers in the UK, stocking shelves at Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's, Morrison's, you name it. When a company this big starts cutting corners, the fallout isn't small, it's massive. And in 2019, that's exactly what happened. Prince's issued an urgent recall of its corned beef after routine testing found something that should never be in your food. Fragments of metal, not tiny specks, actual pieces of metal that could cause choking, internal injuries, or worse. The Food Standards Agency didn't mince words. Do not eat this product. Return it immediately. And it's not just what's accidentally in the can. It's what's intentionally there that should worry you. Let's talk about Prince's canned tuna. The UK consumes millions of tins of tuna every year, and Prince's is one of the biggest suppliers. But testing has repeatedly shown that cheaper canned tuna, including budget supermarket brands like Prince's, often contains higher levels of mercury than premium alternatives. Mercury doesn't cook off. It doesn't rinse away. It accumulates in your brain, kidneys, and nervous system over years. For older adults, pregnant women, or anyone with kidney issues, that slow drip of mercury is a ticking time bomb. Brain fog, tremors, kidney damage, symptoms that creep up so gradually you never connect them to that tuna sandwich you've been eating twice a week for the past decade. Then there's the sodium problem. A single tin of Prince's corned beef clocks in at over 900 milligrams of sodium per serving. And let's be real, who measures out a single serving? Most people eat half the tin or more in one sitting. That's nearly the entire daily allowance recommended by the British Heart Foundation for someone managing high blood pressure. For anyone over 50, especially those on blood pressure medication, diuretics, or kidney pills, that sodium spike is like pulling the emergency brake on your cardiovascular system. Blood pressure climbs, water retention builds, and suddenly your medication has to work twice as hard just to keep you stable. And don't think the reduced salt versions are your savior. By UK law, reduced salt only means 25% less than the original. A product that was dangerously high is still dangerously high, just slightly less so. But the risks don't stop at the ingredients. The can itself is part of the problem. For decades, most canned foods in the UK were lined with epoxy resins containing bisphenol A, or BPA. Europe took the threat seriously. In 2023, the European Food Safety Authority slashed the safe daily intake of BPA to near zero. By 2024, the EU voted to ban BPA in food packaging altogether. Yet older stock, discount lines, and budget brands like Prince's often lag behind. Many tins still carry BPA-based linings or have quietly swapped to BPS and BPF, chemicals structurally similar to BPA with nearly identical concerns. The label might say BPA-free, but that doesn't mean safe. It just means they've shuffled the letters. Bottom line, Prince's built its reputation on affordability and availability. But affordable doesn't mean safe. Between the recalls, the high sodium, the mercury in the tuna, and the chemical linings that regulators across Europe have banned, Prince's is a brand that's coasting on legacy while cutting corners on safety. At number 6, Morrison's Savours canned vegetables. The budget line that millions of British families reach for without a second thought. Sweet corn, carrots, peas, garden vegetables, products that look harmless that parents buy by the trolley load. But testing over the past few years has revealed a pattern that should alarm every shopper. Morrison's Savours vegetable tins have been flagged for containing excessive sodium and undeclared processing chemicals. A standard tin of Morrison's Savours sweet corn clocks in at around 500 to 650 milligrams of sodium per serving, and the serving size listed is half the tin. Most people drain the tin, tip it into a bowl, and call it a side dish. That's over 1,000 milligrams of sodium in one sitting. Nearly half your daily allowance gone before you've even touched the main course. And here's the cruel irony. Sweet corn is naturally low in sodium. There's no reason for it to be swimming in salt except to mask poor quality and extend shelf life, but for anyone managing blood pressure or heart disease, that hidden salt load is quietly sabotaging every other healthy choice you make. Worse, Morrison's Savers no added salt versions aren't as clean as they claim. Testing by which has found that even the reduced salt lines often contain higher sodium levels than stated on the label. That's not just misleading, it's dangerous. When people with high blood pressure rely on those labels to make safe choices, inaccurate information isn't a minor error, it's a betrayal of trust. The can lining is another concern. Morrison's Savers tins, like most budget supermarket brands, are lined with epoxy resins. Many claim BPA-free, but that often just means BPS or BPF instead. Same hormone-disrupting properties, different name. The acidic brine used to preserve the vegetables makes it worse. Acidity pulls more chemicals out of the lining and into the food. Independent testing has found measurable levels of bisphenols leaching into the liquid inside budget vegetable tins. Not massive amounts, but enough to matter when you're eating these products regularly. And here's the part that should worry every parent. Morrison's markets these tins as family-friendly, convenient for school lunches and quick dinners, but children are far more vulnerable to chemical exposure than adults. Their bodies are smaller, their detox systems are still developing. Budget-friendly shouldn't mean health-compromising, but with Morrison's Savers vegetables, that's exactly what you're getting. At number 5, Asda Smart Price canned meats, specifically their luncheon meat, chopped ham, and corned beef. Products marketed as budget essentials for families trying to save money. But behind the bargain price is a product so low in quality, so high in sodium and preservatives that it should come with a warning label. Let's start with what these tins actually contain. Asda Smart Price, corned beef lists meat as the first ingredient. But what meat? UK labelling laws allow manufacturers to use mechanically recovered meat, a process where carcasses are pressure blasted to strip off every last bit of tissue. What you get isn't cuts of beef. It's a slurry of muscle, fat, connective tissue, all mashed together and pressed into a loaf. This isn't food your grandparents would recognise. The sodium content is shocking. A single serving of Asda Smart Price corned beef contains upwards of 850 milligrams of sodium. Eat a proper portion and you're looking at 1,400 to 1,600 milligrams in one sitting. That's nearly an entire day's allowance for someone with high blood pressure, gone in a sandwich. For seniors, for anyone on blood pressure meds or kidney medication, that sodium overload isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. Blood pressure spikes, fluid retention kicks in, your heart works overtime, your kidneys strain to clear the excess. Then there's the nitrites. These canned meats are loaded with sodium nitrite, a preservative that keeps the meat pink and prevents botulism. But nitrites come with a cost. In your stomach, they can convert into nitrosamines, compounds that are classified as carcinogenic. The World Health Organization has explicitly linked processed meats to increased rates of colorectal cancer, and yet these products are marketed as everyday essentials. Asda's budget lines often use higher levels of nitrites than premium brands because the meat quality is so poor that it needs more chemical intervention to stay shelf-stable. You're not just eating cheap meat, you're eating meat that's been chemically propped up to look, smell, and taste like something edible. The can lining is another nightmare. Asda Smart Price products use the cheapest possible packaging. That means older epoxy linings with BPA or near-identical substitutes. And because these are fatty, oily meats, the chemical leaching is worse. Fats dissolve bisphenols far more readily than water-based foods. Independent testing has found that budget tinned meats often contain some of the highest levels of packaging chemicals in the entire canned food category. Asda knows the quality is low, they know the risks are high, but they also know that millions of British households are struggling to afford food, and those families will reach for the cheapest tin on the shelf every time. That's not serving the community, that's exploiting it. At number 4, Lidl Nix canned fish, specifically their mackerel and sardines. Products marketed as healthy, packed with omega-3s and perfect for a quick protein hit. But scratch beneath the surface and you'll find a trail of recalls and contamination scandals that make this brand one of the riskiest on UK shelves. Let's start with the elephant in the room. In 2022, Lidl was forced to issue an urgent recall of multiple batches of Armada mackerel fillets after inspectors found them contaminated with Listeria monocytogenes. That's the bacteria responsible for listeriosis, a serious infection that can cause fever, muscle aches, and in vulnerable people, it can be fatal. The Food Standards Agency didn't sugarcoat it. Do not eat. Return immediately. Risk of serious illness. And this wasn't Lidl's first offence. Over the past 5 years, the Armada brand has been quietly pulled from shelves themselves multiple times for labeling errors, undeclared allergens, and processing failures. Each time, the recalls were handled quietly. A notice on the website, maybe a small sign in store if you happen to look. No big press release, no public outcry, just a silent admission that the product wasn't safe, followed by business as usual a few weeks later. That's not accountability, that's damage control. When a brand racks up this many safety failures in such a short time, it's not bad luck, it's bad practice. But the contamination issues are only part of the problem. Lidl's Armada mackerel and sardines are packed in sunflower oil. Sounds harmless until you realize that sunflower oil is loaded with omega-6 fatty acids, which in excess promote inflammation. The whole reason people eat oily fish is for the anti-inflammatory omega-3s. But when the fish is swimming in omega-6 rich oil, you're undermining the very benefit you're trying to get. It's like taking a vitamin and a poison at the same time and hoping the vitamin wins. And the quality of the fish itself is questionable. Lidl sources its Armada products from low-cost suppliers, often in countries with weaker food safety standards. Mackerel and sardines are particularly prone to contamination because they're oily fish that spoil quickly if not handled properly. If the fish warms up on the dock, bacteria can take hold. Histamine poisoning causes symptoms that mimic an allergic reaction: flushing, rapid heartbeat, itching, nausea. People rush to A&E thinking they're having a heart attack, but it's poisoning from fish that was mishandled before it ever reached the tin. And once histamine forms, it doesn't go away. Cooking doesn't destroy it. It's there, waiting in every bite. Then there's the sodium. A single tin of Lidl mackerel fillets contains upwards of 750 milligrams of sodium, and that's before you add it to anything else. For someone managing high blood pressure or kidney disease, that's a significant portion of your daily allowance. And because these tins are marketed as healthy protein, people don't think twice. But when it's this heavily salted, packed in inflammatory oil, and sourced from suppliers with a track record of contamination, the health benefits are drowned out by the risks. Bottom line, Lidl's Armada tinned fish is a brand built on one thing: price. Low cost, low quality, low safety standards. The recalls speak for themselves. At number 3, Aldi Brooklia canned soup, the budget line that promises warmth and comfort in a hurry. Tomato soup, vegetable soup, chicken soup, products that look innocent enough that people reach for when they're tired and don't feel like cooking. But for older bodies, that comfort comes loaded with stealth hazards: sodium bombs, sneaky potassium swaps, and can-lining chemicals that regulators can't even agree on. A standard tin of Aldi Brooklia tomato soup clocks about 550 milligrams of sodium per serving. Most people don't stop at one serving. They heat up the whole tin and pour themselves a bowl. That turns into over 100 milligram in one sitting. Almost the entire day's worth if you're trying to keep blood pressure in check. Chicken and vegetable soups push even higher. The reduced sodium labels, don't be fooled. By law, that just means 25% less than the original. A regular tin that was 900 milligrams drops to around 675. Still way too high. Only low sodium, 140 milligrams or less per serving, really counts. Always read the fine print. And here's the plot twist most shoppers miss. In cutting sodium, many companies are sneaking in potassium chloride, now marketed as potassium salt. Sounds healthy until you remember what happens when your kidneys don't clear potassium well, or you're on common meds like ACE inhibitors. High potassium can stop your heart. The National Kidney Federation flat out warns older adults with chronic kidney disease to steer clear of salt substitutes with potassium, yet they're hiding in soups labeled healthy. As if that wasn't enough, the can itself can be part of the problem. For decades, soup cans were lined with BPA-based epoxy. Europe recently set the safe daily intake for BPA so low that practically any exposure exceeds it. And in late 2024, the EU voted to ban BPA outright in food packaging. Meanwhile, BPA-free linings often just swap in other bisphenols like BPS or BPF, different initials, same hormone mimicking concerns. Add in the extras: cream soups thickened with starch and sugar, phosphate stabilizers that stress kidneys and bones, and your so-called comfort bowl starts looking like a trap in disguise. Aldi Brooklia soup promises warmth and nostalgia. What it often delivers is a blast of salt, a chemical cocktail from the can lining, and risks your body doesn't recover from as easily past 50. At number 2, Fray Bentos pies. The name alone sparks nostalgia. That iconic tin, the pull ring lid, the promise of a hot, hearty pie in minutes. For generations, Fray Bentos has been a British institution. Steak and kidney, chicken and mushroom, minced beef and onion. Comfort food in a can. But peel back the label and you'll find a product so heavily processed, so loaded with sodium, additives, and low-quality ingredients that calling it food feels generous. Let's start with what's actually in a Fray Bentos pie. The meat content is shockingly low. UK regulations only require a pie to contain a minimum percentage of meat to be labelled as such, and Fray Bentos skates right along that legal minimum. The rest? Gravy thickened with modified starch, water, cheap fats, and a cocktail of flavour enhancers and preservatives. The pastry isn't made with butter. It's made with palm oil and hydrogenated vegetable fats, the very ingredients nutritionists have been warning against for decades. Now let's talk sodium. A single Fray Bentos pie contains between 2,000 and 2,500 milligrams of sodium. That's more than the entire recommended daily limit for an adult, and you're eating it in one meal. For someone with high blood pressure, diabetes, or kidney disease, that's not just excessive. It's reckless. Your body can't process that much salt in one go. Blood pressure spikes. Water retention kicks in. Your heart has to work harder. And here's the kicker. Fray Bentos markets these pies as a quick, satisfying meal. Family-friendly. Convenient. But there's nothing satisfying about a product that delivers a day's worth of sodium, a week's worth of bad fats, and virtually no nutritional value. No fiber. Barely any vitamins. Minimal protein. Just empty calories wrapped in pastry that your body struggles to break down. Then there's the additives. Flip the tin over and read the ingredient list. You'll find flavor enhancers like monosodium glutamate, preservatives like sodium nitrite, emulsifiers, stabilizers, anti-caking agents. This isn't food, it's a chemistry experiment designed to taste like food, and every single one of those additives has to be processed by your liver and kidneys. The research is clear. High consumption of ultra-processed foods is directly linked to increased rates of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, dementia, and even certain cancers. Fray Bentos ticks every box on the ultra-processed list. And don't think the tin itself is innocent. Fray Bentos pies are canned using older-style tin plate with epoxy linings. For years, that meant BPA. Now many claim BPA nay, but that's marketing speak. The real problem is the fat content. Fats are excellent at absorbing chemicals from packaging. That greasy gravy, that oily pastry, they're pulling bisphenols out of the tin lining and delivering them straight into your body. And storage is another weak point. Fray Bentos pies are designed to sit on shelves for years. Real food spoils. Real pies go stale. Fray Bentos stays exactly the same because it's pumped full of preservatives and sealed in a chemical-lined tin. But perhaps the most damning thing about Fray Bentos is what it represents. It's the ultimate example of how the British food industry has normalised garbage. 30 years ago, a pie meant real meat, real pastry, real ingredients. Today we've been conditioned to accept this, and we're told it's convenient. We're told it's a proper meal. But it's none of those things. And finally, taking the number one spot, Tesco chopped pork and ham canned meats. Corned beef, ham, luncheon meat, chopped pork. Products marketed as budget essentials, as everyday staples for families trying to save money. But behind the bargain price is a product so low in quality, so high in risk, that it should come with a warning label. Let's start with what these tins actually contain. Tesco chopped pork and ham corned beef lists meat as the first ingredient. But UK labelling laws allow manufacturers to use mechanically recovered meat, a process where carcasses are pressure blasted to strip off every last bit of tissue. What you get isn't cuts of beef. It's a slurry of muscle, fat, connective tissue, and potentially bone fragments, all mashed together. This isn't food your grandparents would recognise. This is industrial waste repackaged as protein, and the sodium content is criminal. A single serving contains upwards of 900 milligrams of sodium. Eat a proper portion, and you're looking at 1,500 to 1,800 milligrams in one sitting. That's an entire day's allowance for someone with high blood pressure, gone in a sandwich. For seniors, for anyone on blood pressure meds or kidney medication, that sodium overload isn't just uncomfortable, it's dangerous. Blood pressure spikes, fluid retention kicks in, your heart works overtime, your kidneys strain to clear the excess. One meal shouldn't do that, but Tesco chopped pork and ham makes it inevitable. Then there's the nitrites. These canned meats are loaded with sodium nitrite, a preservative that keeps the meat pink and prevents botulism. But nitrites come with a cost. In your stomach, they can convert into nitrosamines, compounds that are classified as carcinogenic. The World Health Organization has explicitly linked processed meats to increased rates of colorectal cancer, and yet these products are marketed as everyday essentials, family staples, lunchbox fillers. Worse, Tesco's budget lines often use higher levels of nitrites than premium brands because the meat quality is so poor that it needs more chemical intervention to stay shelf-stable. You're not just eating cheap meat, you're eating meat that's been chemically propped up to look, smell, and taste like something edible, and every bite adds to your cumulative cancer risk. The can lining is another nightmare. Tesco chopped pork and ham products use the cheapest possible packaging. That means older epoxy linings with BPA or near-identical substitutes like BPS. And because these are fatty, oily meats, the chemical leaching is worse. Fats dissolve bisphenols far more readily than water-based foods. Independent testing has found that budget tinned meats often contain some of the highest levels of packaging chemicals in the entire canned food category. You're not just eating corned beef, you're eating a cocktail of hormone disruptors that have been steeping in that tin for months, maybe years. And let's not forget the recalls. Tesco has quietly pulled batches of everyday value canned meats multiple times over the past decade. Reasons range from labeling errors and undeclared allergens to metal contamination and potential bacterial issues. Each time the recall is handled quietly. A notice online, maybe a small sign in store. No headlines, no outrage. Just a silent acknowledgement that the product wasn't safe, followed by restocking a few weeks later. But perhaps the most damning evidence is this. Mechanically recovered meat is banned for use in certain products in the EU due to safety concerns. The UK, post-Brexit, still allows it, especially in budget lines where cost matters more than safety. Tesco knows this. They know the quality is low. They know the risks are high, but they also know that millions of British households are struggling to afford food, and those families will reach for the cheapest tin on the shelf every time. That's not serving the community, that's exploiting it. You've just seen the 5 worst canned food brands in the UK, products with failed recalls, hidden sodium and chemical issues, and cost-cutting at every turn. But not all canned foods are unsafe. A few brands still get it right, and I'll show you which ones. If this video helped you protect your family, hit like and subscribe. Your support helps us keep exposing the truth. And let me know in the comments which brand shocked you most. Now, here's what you should be buying. At number 2 on the safe list, Biona Organic Canned Beans. If you want clean, ethically sourced, genuinely healthy canned food, Biona delivers. Their beans are fully organic. No pesticides, no synthetic fertilizers, no GMOs. The ingredients are simple. Beans, water, sea salt. No additives, no potassium chloride, no preservatives. Sodium levels are far lower than budget brands, and their tins use BPA-free linings. Third-party tests show no detectable bisphenols, heavy metals, or pesticide residues. Nutritionally, beans are excellent, high in protein, fiber, and essential A minerals. Rinse them before use to cut sodium further. Biona proves canned food can be safe and healthy. At number 1, Napolina Canned Tomatoes. This is one canned product you can trust. Their tomatoes are Italian-sourced, naturally high-acid, and processed in ways that preserve nutrition. The acidity protects against harmful bacteria like C. botulinum, and canning increases lycopene availability by breaking down cell walls. Napolina uses BPA-9 linings, and independent tests rank their tins among the cleanest available. Low-sodium options are common, and the ingredients are exactly what they should be. Tomatoes, tomato juice, citric acid. No additives or hidden chemicals. Pair with olive oil to boost lycopene absorption even more. Napolina remains the gold standard. So there you have it. 7 brands to avoid and 2 you can trust. Many big cheap brands cut corners with high sodium, chemical linings, contamination risks, and low-quality ingredients. But you do have choices. Read labels, pick organic and BPA-free options, and choose brands with transparent sourcing. When unsure, go fresh or frozen. Your health is worth more than saving a few pence. If this helped, like, subscribe, and share. I'll keep exposing the truth, one tin at a time. Stay safe and stay informed.